Hello, Robert England here, a.k.a. Freddy Krueger, and you're listening to geeksoftheindustry.com. Don't fall asleep.
Geeks of the Industry.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to witness some scenes from the next attraction to play this picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily offended. We urgently recommend that if you are such a person or the parent of a young or impressionable child now in attendance, that you and the child leave the auditorium for the next
Welcome to Creature Features, a horror discussion from geeksoftheindustry.com. And now your host, Chunky Larry.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to a very special edition of the Creature Features podcast on geeksoftheindustry.com. I'm your host. My name is Chunky Larry, and as I've mentioned in the past interview, for the month of February, there's a movement going on. It's kind of an internet movement called Women in Horror Month, where the horror community is highlighting actresses, directors, people that write, in the horror genre, and to kind of, throw my hat in the ring, I've set up a series of interviews, and this particular interview is like exciting for me on a lot of different levels. If you've ever listened to an episode of Creature Features, it's a story that I tell pretty much every chance I have the chance to tell it, where at the end of the sixth grade, I was 12 years old, and I had a sleepover at my friend's house. We watched movies, as you do, played video games, ate pizza. But the end of the night, we watched a film called Nightmare on Elm St. And this was a moment in my life that will, you have those moments like, car accidents, your child being born. But something that, deeply affects the course of your life from that point on. And that was absolutely the moment that I saw young Tina Gray in the street and Freddy Krueger coming down the alleyway with his arms outstretched. And it utterly changed my life in a lot of different ways. I became obsessed with the horror genre. I wanted to make film, and now, all these years later, I'm able to do something that I never thought I'd honestly be able to do. And I get to sit with one of the stars of Nightmare on Elm St. She has been in just about anything you can be in the worlds of television, cinema, and she's amazing, she's talented, she's one of the sweetest women that I've ever had the potential or the opportunity to meet. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Amanda Wyss, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm so good right now. I can't even, I can't undersell it, dude. This is awesome to me. I had the opportunity to kind of tell you before we had started recording that we had met kind of before this conversation ever took place, and it was at the Walker Stalker convention in San Francisco, and you are just honestly, and I've said it before to anybody that'll listen, you are one of the most genuine, sweetest people that I've ever met in a convention situation or otherwise. You're honest, you're real, and you don't have the bravado of somebody that's done as much as you've done, and you've done a lot. So, it's really kind of, extra special to me because, this is the month of women in horror, and you've had your fair share of films in the horror genre, but you've done more than that. And I want to kind of start at the beginning of your career, and I know that you started very early in life working in theater.
Yes.
So is that like what was it that prompted inside of you that said, I want to get on stage in front of potentially hundreds of people and play make pretend?
It's interesting. I think it found me. The grade school I went to was at the beach in Southern California. It was very progressive, and there was a lot of public speaking and debating and theater that as a form of expression and literature. And so very early on, from like the third grade, I sort of got the bug of performing in the theater department. And then my older sister was a theater arts major at UCLA, and through her with her, she would take me and my younger siblings around to theater around town. And I ended up meeting a director at a theater in LA, and he happened to be doing The Innocents in the coming season and asked me to read for it, and I got it. And then the following season, I did The Bad Seed there, and that was pretty amazing because it was a beautiful theater, and that's how I got my agent. And I was only 11, and then from there, I did quite a few plays, including I did The Country Girl with Eva Marie Saint, and so I did some really exciting plays. And although I have to sadly say I haven't done a play in many years, and many actors will tell you when you step away from the stage, it's really intimidating to go back. And I know I need to, but I haven't in a long time. So that'll be a nice, terrifying thing to do down the road. And I miss that thrill and immediacy and challenge. And I mean, a well-written play, the language is so beautiful, and the words are so beautiful. Last night I saw Long Day's Journey into Night at the Geffen Playhouse here, and I forgot how beautiful that play is and how well written, and I went, I need to get back on stage. I need to say words this delicious and beautiful and meaningful. And
I tend to ask this of any actor that I get on the show that has also had some work in theater, and then gone on to do film and television. What are the immediate differences, aside from the fact that you can't call cut, that you've take from working in theater as opposed to working in the film industry?
Well, I think one thing is that audience, when you're doing a live performance, really affects your energy. It fuels you. There's this whole other element in the play with you of the audience and their response. And I mean, you can see them and hear them and feel their energy. And so it really becomes part of the play in some, energetic way. And where in film, you don't have that immediate feedback at all. I kind of look at the camera as my audience, and I manufacture that feeling. But the truth is, you don't have any immediate feedback. The director will say, "Well done," or whatever. But it's not the same as hearing somebody in the audience gasp, or you can hear someone cry, or you hear everyone laughing, because obviously on a film set everyone has to be quiet. So if they are giving you energy, you don't really know as far as being able to hear it. And so I think that's the big difference of having to I just think that that's one of the huge differences, not feeling that alive audience with you. That said, I love the camera, and I love the process of filmmaking, and it really is. I'm fascinated by it. I'm thrilled every time I walk on a set. I love how the camera, if it's well shot, and if you're working with a great crew, just how it can pick up just the faintest glimmer in your eye and help you tell a story in such a subtle way, where on stage you have to not necessarily indicate you have
to play it a little bit bigger because of, you're playing to a crowd.
Exactly.
Where you be a little bit more nuanced on screen.
Yeah. Well, and the big difference is if you go see a play and actors are taking long pauses and self-indulgent, it becomes self-indulgent because the audience can't see that, your personal catharsis. Mm-hmm. Where the camera can see that. The camera can pick up the machinations of your mind through your eyes, if you play your cards right. And so those are my long rambling.
No, you're doing
point.
You also went to Strasbourg, right?
Yes.
Hone your craft, kind of when you stepped away from theater, or was this during you working in theater?
During. Yeah.
And what would you say, just kind of, because you started, without any kind of education, you kind of learned on the job, I'd assume, and then worked your way into school, or was that always kind of, what, as far as developing tricks and techniques, is that something that you feel is kind of instinctual, or like a gut feeling when you start off into acting, or is it something that you should have kind of an insight on when you step out onto a stage or onto a set?
Right. Well, you know what? I mean, it's all personal preference. I've always studied, and I still study. I love doing scene study and study Shakespeare and go to class, put up scenes. I feel like you can't have too many tools in your toolbox. And I think that I'm going to say 80% of, like, when I read a script, it's instinctual. I can take it in, and I sort of instinctually know what to do with the character. But the other 20% is the craft of how do I, what words do you emphasize to give it greater meaning? Where to and not to take beats in order to keep an arc going forward. So there's like tools you learn that I consider the craft part, not to sound too lofty. And then there's occasionally you end up in a role that it's not sinking in, you're not getting it, and that's where your training comes in, because then you go in your toolbox and you're like, all right, how do I get inside this person? And then you start digging through your toolbox, and then eventually you find a way in, and that is harder to do just on instincts alone. But although there's many actors that do. So, just for me personally, I love studying, and I love the chance to play a bunch of roles that I may never get to play in their entirety, but I get to work on them in class, or I get to do them in a short play or something like that. I think it's important, and it keeps me feeling creative, and I just always want to be growing and learning. I in no way think I know how to do it.
Yeah. Now, when you're shooting something kind of, you're not shooting in a linear schedule 9 times out of 10 just because of, like, say, effects for a certain film, or whatever, the actor that is, they only have him for so much time, so you get a piece of a performance, and then you have to come back and kind of match that energy.
Yeah.
Is there a way that when you do it, you feel that you can find your in to that place you were like a week ago? Right.
You know what? I find that to be one of the more challenging things to do, because sometimes you go down a rabbit hole while you're working, and you just get in a groove, and you're just really immersed in it. And then to go back, sometimes it's hard to find that way back in. And often you can find the way back in, but I had the experience actually recently doing ADR on a movie, and I hadn't even realized it, but my voice was different, and I couldn't figure out what it was I had done, and it took quite a while, and then I finally got there. So I think it's a challenge because sometimes organic magic happens and it's hard to recreate that. However, that's our job to recreate it, and so you figure out how to do it. But I find that sometimes is hard, and I often feel that when I've gone back to add, I feel like it's never quite as good as it was in the original moment. But it's always a good learning lesson, and it's good practice to have to do that. I mean, I've had to do whole emotional scenes to a piece of tape on whiteboard because of the way the room was configured and the camera was. The actor couldn't fit there. Mm-hmm. And so you really learn that it is really just all make-believe.
Yeah, when you have to try to play off of somebody, but they're not there per se. Yeah. You're doing that wide and they're there and you're in that moment, you guys can kind of vibe off of each other. But then you have to do the close-up and it's, maybe a day or two later. And it's like, where was my end with that? And,
exactly.
Yeah, so I've always been intrigued by the difference because I liken theater to jazz, where you can find a rhythm with people and you can just kind of roll with things. Whereas film, it's like, putting that essence onto a record, and trying to recapture that magic that kind of happened instinctually and naturally in the moment, and then trying to create that moment. And I've always found that intriguing and interesting. So I love to be able to, pick an actor's brain about that specifically. I think directors, good directors who work with actors have to at least have, acted a little bit themselves to kind of understand that. And would you say that that's been your experience working with directors? Like you've worked with some greats, obviously, Wes Craven. I would love if you could because obviously I'm a big fanboy when it comes to Nightmare on Elm Street. I would love to hear what it was like, kind of coming in on the set, because you'd done work, you had at that point done television, you'd done film, you did Fast Times, and you'd done what was it, Force 5, I believe.
Yeah.
So you had the experience with working on a set, but that movie in itself, it seems like it was such an intricate shoot, just from the imaginations and machinations of Wes Craven, doing things like the rotating room,
right?
And it being so effects heavy. Like, is there a way that you're able to kind of keep in the moment when I know that there's a lot of setup for something like that? I mean, what was Wes's interactions with you as far as a director to actor?
There's so many things to say. Wes, first of all, as everyone has already repeated a million times, he was, incredibly intelligent and erudite and professorial, hilariously funny, a great storyteller, really specific about what he wanted, and, he's just a great storyteller and was very clear about the story he was telling, the movie he wanted to make, all the pieces in the puzzle, and mostly like his directorial style was really, first of all, he was great at casting. He cast the people he wanted to work with, or he thought best fit his vision for the movie. So you weren't really fighting anything. He wanted you in the movie because of what you could bring to it. So he was already on your side. He was never frustrated with the performance or anything like that. But he just was really clear and supportive and nurturing. And gosh, we were so young when we made that movie. He was very kind and patient. And, he he was very clear about explaining what he wanted, because, like you said, the movie was very effects heavy, and the trick, I think, with horror in general, and an action movie as well, but let's say horror, is to really try to find truth and grounding in a surreal, highly illogical situation, or a situation that you go, yeah, right, that would never happen. And so I think movies that stand the test of time, the actors have found a way to do that. They're immersed in it. They're taking the situation seriously, and I think that helps the audience go on the journey. And so Wes was very in support of maintaining, that kind of realism. And so, like, say, in the death scene with the rotating room, gosh, that was a challenging thing to shoot, because very few people could be in that room. It actually did get cranked by a hand crank outside to spin around, and everything in the room was nailed down, shellacked, glued. Jacques Aitken was in I want to say like an airplane chair, but it was, and so he was strapped into a corner holding the camera, and there was a chair next to him for whatever actor was in the scene. And so in my scene it was Jesus Garcia. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was, we just took it beat by beat, because once you get the blood in there, we couldn't really go back. It was very low budget. And, I got into the frame of mind I needed to be in. And Wes just was very encouraging and supportive to help maintain that energy that we needed to shoot that scene. And I got disoriented doing it, and we had to stop a bunch of times. And it was just one of those things that was, it was a tricky scene to shoot, but we did it, and in the end, we created something that I think was really grueling and heartbreaking, and
effective.
It's very effective. It's been on the Academy Awards. The picture of Wes and I shooting that scene was hanging in the Los Angeles Directors Guild for many years. A big poster of us doing that scene, and it's on lists of best death scenes, and not just from the horror world, just from a cinematic point of view. And so, Wes created all that, and I got to go along for the journey. It did, and be a part of something that ended up being this iconic piece of footage.
Yeah, the movement in that moment, as you're kind of being dragged around, because of I can only assume the room itself moving, it looks, again, very otherworldly. Like the performance, I can only imagine, having to move around this room and go up the wall. I just, it's one of those things that when you watch it, because it's so surreal,
yeah.
But it's grounded in a place that's very real. It's your bedroom. There's this kind of, thing that when you watch it, very much like the scene where he's walking through the alleyway and his arms are outstretched, and it just kind of effect wise, I can imagine in the moment, especially being a low budget film, that a couple of guys holding strings and arms, and you're shooting it, and you're like, this isn't gonna be scary, but it's so scary.
Yeah.
because it's these surreal images in real world places. And I don't know, there's just something so tangible about that film, and I feel that the other films didn't necessarily achieve, and it's almost because it's it's its own thing unto itself. Before, because me being a child growing up in the 80s,
right?
I was aware of Freddy Krueger, but it wasn't until I was 12 that I actually got to genuinely watch the movie. So it was the first one I saw, and when you don't see anything like that, you're not really sure how to process it. And I don't know, that's the one thing that just kind of profoundly affected me about the film. But again, it's all attributed to performances. You know, for an actor to be able to make that leap, where it is surreal in nature, but everything about performances from you and Jason, just it seems again genuine, and when things don't seem genuine, you start to see the strings, and that's kind of what makes that film work so much.
I like that, and isn't Jesu wonderful in that scene?
He is, and
he's so talented, and and Heather, who's really my best friend in real life, she just that beautiful face and her tenacity and her integrity, and she's just, I just think she's phenomenal in it too. It's I think she's a real heartbreaker, and I don't know. Yeah, it was a good cast. She certainly is.
But I mean, working on a set like this, or Fast Times, or Better Off Dead, there's never. I can only assume you're not sitting there on set like, this is going to be the one. This is going to be iconic, and it's going to last for years and years. I assume. I mean, I figure when you're acting, you're doing the job. You're finding the truth of the performance. But is there ever a moment when you're sitting on set where you're saying to yourself, I'm going to be talking about this for the next 30 years?
You know what? I think there's people that maybe have that kind of ability to see into the future. I am not. I had no idea. Not because I didn't think we were making a good movie. I just didn't. I hadn't. No, I just thought, well, this is great. I've never done a horror film. This has been a really interesting challenge, and I hope I get to do another one. And you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I've made new friends. I really like Wes. This has been a real challenge, and it was interesting. I just didn't look into the future with it. In fact, I didn't think about it being that way. For one thing, that year, I literally went from movie to movie. You did
Silverado and Better Off Dead as well.
Yeah. So right in succession. So I was just like, my head was swimming. Now, that said, a year later, after the movie came out, knock, knock, knock on my front door at Halloween, and there's like 3 Freddys standing there. So I was like, well, that's something. And so they were young, and I said, I played Tina in that movie. And they're like, yeah, right. And then they never believed me, and they took my candy and left. I was like, dang.
You should have just screamed.
I know, right?
Though their parents might not have taken kindly to that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Why is this fucking woman screaming at my kids?
I just thought that was so funny. I was like, you can't win for losing. So I thought that was funny. This happened to me one other time, and it's not about Freddie, but I'll be walking down the street or something, and people say, oh, you look so familiar.
You're the one that dumped John Cusack.
Yeah. Or they'll say, or they just think they know me. And so they'll say, oh, did you go to this school? Or did you work here? Do you know so-and-so? And I was just, like, oh, yeah, I just have that face. And so one time, I'm going to reiterate, one time I said, oh, well, maybe you feel that way because I'm an actor. And the person goes, no, that's not it. So
no idea.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, whatever. It's all good.
I want to talk about another film that you did that I think is just phenomenal. And I don't feel it's gotten its just due up to this point. I would absolutely recommend anybody that's listening to this to go out of their way to watch it, and that is The Id.
Thank you.
That film is so heartbreaking, and your performance is something to be admired. I didn't even plan on mentioning this, but my wife's grandmother just passed, and I took care of her for a long time, and at sometimes it wasn't easy to deal with, but the performance and the the structure of that film, you know, there's a moment, you know, where I absolutely, you know, understood her motivations. Not so much where she goes with it,
Right.
but that feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, in the sense that, you know, you love this person and you want to help them, you want to take care of them, but it's almost like you become a prisoner in the house with them.
Yes.
And, you know, there are moments where, you know, she's fantasizing about this life outside of the confines of the house, you know, and just being able, like, putting on lipstick is a, you know, special thing, you know, just the most, you know, core element of being able to be a woman, and, you know, putting on makeup. And it, you know, the performance of, you know, your father in the film, you know, is, again, terrifying, and it feels very real, and it's just all of the elements. It's a very claustrophobic film, but there's just this longing in Meredith to, you know, be out of this place, and it seems like, and I just watching it, I felt like it wasn't this that kind of drove her over the edge, but it didn't, you know, stop her either. That there's a long history of that in her head, where a lot of the things are in her head. Can you tell me about the making of The Id? Because I saw this and I just thought it was brilliant.
Oh, okay, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss. There just aren't any words that adequately express that, and I'm just very sorry for your loss. And I want to say, thank you for liking that movie. It's such a labor of love. I loved making that movie, which sounds crazy because it's such a dark. I feel as you do, and you put so eloquently. It's a really wonderful tale of the struggle of a caretaker, of mental illness, of choices we make in life, and I just loved playing that role. It's my favorite role to date, as far as just diving into something, and it was just a labor of love with a beautiful crew. Patrick Perduto worked so hard as the dad, and it just came across so suitably horrifying, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I loved working with Tommy Hudson. And for the Nightmare on Elm Street fans,
and you met him through the Never Sleep Again, right?
Yes, he's produced the Never Sleep Again documentary. So I feel like there's a nice Nightmare on Elm Street connection. I wish all the Nightmare on Elm Street fans would go see the movie, because I think they would find a really cool, like, a slow burn of a horror / thriller, and I think it's smart and interesting and weird and creepy, and I as you said, it just hasn't found its audience yet, and I truly hope it does someday by some magic, because I'm so proud of it, and I think fans of the genre would really, they're missing out on a cool slow burn movie. And even people that, just gonna say very few, that didn't actually like the movie that much, but they liked it, but they weren't like, oh my god. They contacted me afterwards and said, you know what, I take it back, I can't stop thinking about this movie. Like, it sticks with you. You can't stop thinking about it. Anyway, thank you for liking it and spreading the word and your kind thoughts about my performance. I'm so appreciative and grateful that role has come along at this point in my life, and I really hope, some other new juicy roles like that come along as well. And I just want to keep diving into those kind of stories. Do you want to know the interesting thing? For it being a horror film, so many people have told me that have seen the film beautiful stories like the one you just told me. And it never occurred to me that that was going to be one of the byproducts of the film, and that it opens a dialogue about caretaker and taking care of loved ones and loss. And I just felt honored, and I think it's a beautiful byproduct of a movie that is unexpected. And I love that movie, and I hope more people get to see it.
Yeah, I really, specifically the stuff with Meredith and Ted is just some of the most heartbreaking stuff. When in her mind she's creating these, potential ways that this interaction can go.
Yes.
And that they're absolutely real to her.
Yes.
And not to spoil it too much, but when she does the exact same thing with the police officer, I was like, oh my god, no, she's just crazy. Like, it's too late for her, and it's tragic, and it's just I feel just a expertly crafted thriller with just very tragic elements, and I would love to see more of that from you, because I feel like when people look at you as an actor, they either see, oh, that's the girl from Fast Times, or that's the girl who fucking dumped John Cusack, or that's the girl who went up the ceiling. But there's so much more to you as an actress, and I wonder, when you're going out for roles like, for television, and you've played quite a few Cindys, you've played quite a few Tinas. I almost want to start calling you Cindy Tina, but
and Beth, don't forget.
There's like 4 or 5 Beths too.
Isn't that weird? And is it on purpose? I don't know. I just think it's strange.
I think maybe to some extent, some people might, with you in mind, say, oh yeah, that character's name is Beth. I loved that movie. Hey, would you mind if I asked Beth out? But when you go and apply for a role, when you go out for a casting, is there anything you feel? I talked to Lisa Wilcox last year, name dropping.
Oh, I love her.
But
I love her. Sorry, go on.
No, she had said something about the casting process, that when you go in, you want to have a hook, something that sets you apart from everybody else. Do you feel that you have a hook, or do you feel that you just kind of approach each thing in its own way?
Gosh, I think, gosh, that sounds so good to have a hook. I don't know if I have a hook. Now I want a hook. I want one. Yeah, you know what? I just try to, I just want to know. I try to know who the person is and try to step in, me in those circumstances, I guess. That doesn't sound very intelligent, but I think the thing that sets me apart is just me. You know what I mean? So I just try to immerse myself in the circumstances of the story and, be present when I audition and try to bring it to life that way. Maybe I'd work more if I had a hook.
Do you feel like the casting process for you as an actor has changed throughout your career? Like, when you went in, in the 80s as opposed to in the 90s as opposed to now, do you feel that there's any difference, or is it all kind of, this is the job, my agent said I should come check this out, and you read it, you try to internalize it, you go in, or do you feel that there's a difference, over the course of your career?
I think in some ways just the machinations of it are the same. There's a casting director who sort of tries to weed people out and, sort of the gatekeeper to the people that are going to cast you or hire you. That's still the same. I think that I think the process is still pretty much the same, although now more people, you put yourself on tape more and send it in. You're not as in the room as often or as much. But I think, I don't know. I think that also when you're younger, the whole process is a little more forgiving because they're still trying to find the next people. So you don't necessarily have to be the best. You might just have a thing that they think is interesting to you. I think you end up having a lot more opportunity. And I think as you get older, the field gets more competitive because they sort of have decided these are the 10 people we're going to hire for all the TV roles, and these are the indie horror people and stuff. And so I think that in a way it's a little tougher because the field is a little more competitive, but the actual process is still pretty much the same. You get sent a script, you read it, you work on the audition scene, you go in, they give you an opportunity. I always kind of look at it like a fun, whether I get the role or not, I get to actually perform the role with a captive audience that has no choice but to sit there and watch it. So I'm like, whether you hire me or not, I got to do the part. So thank you.
Nailed it.
Yeah, done. Boom.
That's a very good way of looking at it. And last question, and I'll let you go because I know that your time is precious. Going forward in your career, is there something that you as an actress want to accomplish before everything is said and done? Is there something that you want to be remembered as doing, in your career that you maybe haven't done yet?
You mean like a role? Like a type
role, a job that you feel you could really bring something to, like a teacher, or just a performance? Is there something you feel you've yet to do that you really want to do?
Yeah, I feel like I have yet. The id was close. I haven't had the roles where I've really, really had the opportunity to challenge myself and immerse myself and bring to life a character within a story that I'm so proud to be a part of. As an adult, as a grown-up, I haven't, other than the id and a few TV roles. So yes, I want more roles like Meredith. I want that my legacy to be, as an actress, to be more present and not just what happened in the 80s. And I think, so I would love to have roles come along. Not that I love my legacy from the 80s. I don't mean to. And I feel honored to be in all those movies, including, gosh, Silverado, Pow Wow Highway, all of them. All of them. But I don't want it to be just that. I want more of like the id, but hopefully in a film that catches on. That would be amazing. And I think ultimately, I see myself behind the camera, directing. I think that ultimately that'll be a place that I would like to find myself.
I would love to see that. Honestly, that would be interesting. Because you do have a wealth of experience, of working on, projects that are iconic. There's no way to undersell it. You've been in some of the, biggest iconic movies of, my generation.
Yeah.
And, I feel that kind of knowledge, would not only help a film, but would help a young aspiring actress as well.
That would be great. That would be great. And I just want to say, about the iconic films. I mean, pinch me. Like, what are the odds? I mean, I just fell into this amazing good fortune. I mean, I worked as an actor, but lots of people work hard, and so I just feel super grateful about that. And iconic TV shows. It's just, I'm like so grateful, beyond grateful, and I just want some more cool, fun, exciting things in the future as well, like the id, and I'm so grateful that you liked it and you're plugging that for now. And you know what? I think I love the idea of shepherding a script from a writer like Sean Stewart, who wrote The Id, who's just a fantastic young writer, and he has so many amazing stories in him, to take an amazing story like that and bring it to life with, you know, I don't know, just with beautifully shot, beautifully told, well acted, and share it with the world so people have a chance to go be entertained, escaped, thought-provoking. That like The Id, it opens a dialogue about things. I want to be a part of that process, and I think that ultimately that would be exciting to be from a director standpoint as well as from an actor standpoint. Those are the two things: more juicy, delicious roles like Meredith, and behind the camera. I think that's where you'll find me.
Fantastic. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here? Because we're pretty much done. I want you to be able to, you know, take the floor and, you know, say whatever you want. You know, any place people can find you, anything people should look out for. Okay. I know that you worked with Harrison Smith on something that I think was really inventive, and, you know, if you want to share that now or anything you've got coming up, by all means.
Okay, the movie you're talking about is a virtual reality narrative horror short, which very few have ever been made. There's been virtual reality horror shorts, but not narrative, and it's called 360 Degrees of Hell. It's incredibly scary. They're going to make more. Check it out. Samsung 360 is where you'll see that, and it was really exciting to work in virtual reality. I hope I get to do lots more of it. It was really interesting and felt young and exciting and totally scary. And then I have a really good, for horror fans, short called October 23rd that's playing on Vimeo that is also being made into a feature film, and it's super scary and good. I have a movie coming out called The Watcher of Park Avenue, where I play Detective Samantha Warren, and
with past guest Roberto Lombardi.
And, yes, Lisa Wilcox. Yeah. So it's going to be really, really good, and a wonderful young director named Ryan Burton, and a movie called The Capture, directed by Jim Agnew. I have a tiny cameo in a very scary horror story, ghost story called Alice that's coming out, and then I'm about to shoot a couple of films that are two in the horror genre, and so I'll keep you posted. So Absolutely. This year I'm already busy, and I'm excited and hope that keeps going. I'm so excited.
And where can people follow you?
Oh, I have a website called amandawyss.com. I'm on Instagram, Amanda Wyss. Twitter, which I think is fun, _ Amanda Wyss, and Facebook. There's an open page. You don't have to friend request. You can just go, and I like to post on there, and that's it. I have a Snapchat account, but I've never really
I don't understand the Snapchat either.
You know what? Somebody told me this is. I'm telling my age, but somebody said if more than two people have to try to explain Snapchat to you, you're too old to use it. And I was like, done, boom, I'm out.
Yeah, same. It's like I guess there's filters and stuff, and you can write things on the picture.
I know.
Cool, I guess.
You know what? I'm just busy filming, and I'm just gonna. I'm busy. You're busy.
Oh yeah. If you guys are here for Amanda, which I don't blame you, but you've enjoyed the show and you want to find out more about us, you can by all means like us on Facebook, facebook.com/CreaturePod. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CreaturePod. And I just want to thank you again, Amanda. I know that you are a very busy person, and this was a huge honor for me. So, again, just thank you very much for coming on and doing the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful, and it was a lovely chat, and you're awesome.
Well, thank you. But for Amanda Wyss and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Creature Features podcast on geeksoftheindustry.com, Stitcher, and iTunes. Listen, someone you trust.
There's 4 letters on my name, Rod. How can there be room on your joint for 4 letters?
So good. So awesome.